Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePaoli, and today on the show I have a very special guest with me, my friend Jonathan Harvill. Hello and welcome, Jonathan.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me.
My goodness, why don't you tell the folks how we first met?
Gosh, it's kind of weird. Oh, gosh, okay, so back in 2011 Expo, my first Expo, my dad and I were at the Expo. We're in line for a Cars Land panel. So this is pre-DCA revamp here. And I'm in line. I am coming off the high of seeing World of Color for the first time. And this is my first time in DCA, actually. And so I'm talking to my dad about this. And then there's this guy in front of me in line starts chiming into this conversation, this debate between World of Color and Fantasmic, and I think you know where this is going now. And all of a sudden, this guy, Jeff, just starts chiming in saying, how could World of Color be better than Fantasmic? And again, I'm coming off the high. For the record, I think Fantasmic is a much better show, but I think World of Color, the original version, is still great. Anyway, this guy, Jeff, and I just start talking, and he immediately says, you know what? I appreciate that you're saying Walt Disney World, because that's the real name. Proper nomenclature, it's always been important to me. So, Jeff, you and I have always gotten along in that way.
Yeah, and you were a kid. Oh my!
I was 15 years old.
Yeah, you were a kid, and your dad was the nicest. And I think we just kept running into each other after that panel, and then we've kept in touch since 2011.
Since then,
which is crazy.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, we sat together in that panel, but then and we'll talk every, between 2011, 13, 15, we talked, but. Finally, you came over. We got to do a park together on East Coast.
Yeah.
Most recently, I most recently moved here to Florida, so we finally got to do Walt Disney World together.
Yeah. So we've done Walt Disney World, we've done Disneyland, we've done New York City.
We've done New York City. That's right.
Yeah. So in any case, welcome to the show, Jonathan, longtime listener, which I appreciate, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you today about the Disney park name changes. Now, this is very much in the news these days because of the rumors and the conversation going on about the name change of Disney's Hollywood Studios. So let's just jump into it right now.
Let's do it.
It's time to dive into today's Disney Dialogue.
Okay, so let's start with Disney's Hollywood Studios, since that's where all of the, the rumor mill seems to be going these days. But I don't know. So for some of the young listeners out there, and I don't even know about you, Jonathan, do you remember Disney-MGM Studios?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So
yes, it was hard to shake the MGM name once they changed it anyway. So yeah, I grew up with MGM Studios. Disney-MGM Studios, excuse me.
Disney-MGM Studios. And, these days, younger people don't have any memory of that. It's just always been Disney's Hollywood Studios for them. But, it's actually always been, I can remember as a kid, even Disney-MGM Studios, to me, it will always be Disney-MGM Studios. Like, it is that. It's the park that was built when I was a kid, so it's like, I feel some sort of ownership to it. Mm-hmm. But I was always very confused by the whole Disney-MGM name. And I don't know if most kids or people even think of this necessarily, but did you find it weird that there was a theme park just called Disney-MGM Studios, considering they had no relation to each other?
Look, I will say I was a little kid, but at the same time, I've always been the kid. Like, I was on IMDb checking, like, the cast of different films and the directors when I was, like, 8 years old. So, like, that kind of stuff is always, like, studio names, that's always been important to me. But it was always odd, and it was hard to shake that, like, Singing in the Rain and, at the time, Indiana Jones and Star Wars, these were not Disney properties. I grew up associating the Twilight Zone with Disney because of Disney-MGM Studios, Disney's Hollywood Studios. And so, yeah, it was weird that the big Disney name was associated and a theme park with a rival studio, really. So, yeah. It was weird.
Very, very strange. So this all happened on May 1st, 1989, when Disney-MGM Studios opened, and a contract was signed back in 1985. And this contract was good for 20 years. And it was... have you ever heard the stories of this deal? Like how much they paid?
Not the nitty gritty, no.
Okay, it is ridiculous how cheap they got it. They got it for $100,000 for the first 3 years, and then $250,000 for the fourth year, and then a $50,000 increase every year after that, up into $1 million maximum per year, which is nothing.
That's insane
in the grand scheme of things. And from what I understand, the president of MGM didn't really know about this deal until like right before signing it. And he was like, what am I signing here? At least this is how the story goes in Michael Eisner's book. And that's insanity to me. But MGM is such an interesting studio because they have this insanely rich history. And now it's kind of like MGM. And like at this point, they've sold off all of their classic stuff just to have survived. So it is a really interesting deal that went through, this whole Disney-MGM Studios deal. But I love the dedication of the original opening park, where it was, quote, not a place on a map, but a state of mind that exists wherever people dream and wonder and imagine. And I just love that. Yeah. About Disney-MGM Studios. I don't know. It's such a... it's
No, and it isn't the Hollywood that always was and never will be. Isn't that in there too?
Yep.
Love that so much.
Yeah. It's a really wonderful place. I really do love that park. And
I do too.
It was an interesting licensing agreement between Disney and MGM Studios. Now, what it allowed, this contract, was it allowed Disney to use the name and the logo for a studio theme park, since Disney didn't have much content beyond animation. I mean, they had, some of Walt's 20,000 Leagues and stuff like that, but they just weren't there with the modern films. And so Michael Eisner, who came from, a different movie studio, I'm surprised it didn't become Disney Paramount Studios.
I know. Right.
Paramount, I know, has gotten in the theme park game. I don't know if that was before or after Disney-MGM, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Gosh, but what... It's hard. I'm hard pressed to find what is a big Paramount film.
Titanic.
Paramount property. Well,
back in 1989. I mean, for me, it's Sunset Boulevard, but I don't think most kids would know that. That Paramount. I mean, nowadays isn't Transformers them? I think they might be. I mean, they've had hits. Although I will say, this year, as I think the first year in 20 years, I heard something like that. That Paramount Studios has 0 Academy Award nominations.
That's crazy.
That's pretty bad. That's not a good place for a studio to be. And MGM, even these days, I feel like is
James Bond, right? Those are MGM.
Yeah, but they're barely keeping their head above water. It seems like MGM has a really interesting history, and I've got a book about it. I haven't read it yet. I think it's called When the Lion Roared. And it's just crazy to me to think of the rich history that was MGM Studios and what it's become. It's very, very interesting. Yeah. But this relationship between Disney and MGM started off pretty poorly because, as I said, they didn't realize the president of the company didn't realize what he was signing exactly, and eventually realized he made a really terrible deal. But MGM actually tried to sue Disney very early on because before the theme park opened, they shot a movie there called Ernest Saves Christmas. You ever seen it?
No, I haven't. You?
Have you really not?
No, I haven't.
That's funny. Yes, I've seen it. Not the best Ernest movie, but in any case, shot at Disney-MGM Studios. And this was shot in 1988, which was the year before the park opening. And so MGM sued Disney because they said they were using the park as a working studio, violated the terms of the contract. And the case ended up being settled, which allowed Disney to continue using the MGM name, but it also allowed MGM to create a theme park in Vegas in 93. So Disney was trying to say, hey, no, we've got the theme park name. You can't do anything with it. And the lawyers were like, no, they can. And they did in 1993. It closed in 2000 in Las Vegas. But did
you ever go?
I never did. I think it was...
Were you out on the West Coast by then? When did you move out there?
Oh, no. In 1993?
No, but by
2000? No, I moved out here in 2006. So, no.
Oh, okay.
So, no, I did not go. And I honestly don't know. My guess is it was probably more of a thrill park than a theme park. But I really know nothing about the history of that park. So I could be completely wrong. The resort still stands there, though. Mm-hmm. But in any case, so that was all happening in the early 90s. And then, of course, there's the name change, which came about. And why don't you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, I mean, so gosh, it was 2008, January 2008?
Yeah, January 2008.
And as far as I remember, because this is when I was really starting to get online, get on Twitter, and I remember just seeing, at least to me, it was just kind of an overnight. The park name is changing. Like, it was a very quick.
It literally was overnight. Yes.
Yeah, and that was wild to me. But this was because it was encompassing, the purpose was to get away from just, behind the scenes look at movies to like a all-encompassing entertainment, Hollywood entertainment. So we're looking at music and television and theater as well, which, to be honest, I kind of like. I mean, it's nostalgic Disney-MGM Studios, but the idea of including music and theater, Broadway in there too, I think that's cool. So I'm okay with the name change. Yeah,
although I have a very nostalgia feel toward Disney-MGM Studios, I think Disney's Hollywood Studios is a better name. It's Disney, number one, and it's Hollywood, so it's the same thing. It's all the entertainment industry. Right. I will have to say the rededication was, this is a quote that they had, the new name reflects how the park has grown from representing the golden age of movies to a celebration of the new entertainment that today's Hollywood has to offer in music, television, movie, and theater, as you mentioned. I think there's a little bit of BS. To me, it's basically the same thing. I mean, Star Wars... I don't know if when I think the golden age of movie, although it's a classic, I don't think Star Wars or Indiana Jones.
Right. No, and I hear that, and to the new entertainment that today's Hollywood has to offer. That's oh no, are we getting rid of Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard? Are we getting rid of those sections? Which thankfully no, because I think those are still the best sections of the park.
Yeah. Now you've recently, I believe, gone to Universal Studios for the first time, is that correct?
This past fall was my first time when we moved here, yeah.
Okay, so that is very much a theme park. I mean, there's the whole story about the big competition between who was going to open first. Disney-MGM opens first, even though it really wasn't ready. But I'm just curious, and you've been to Hollywood. Which park do you think does a better job representing Hollywood? Just in that main entrance and the feel of Hollywood. What do you expect of Hollywood?
I really... this is hard for me because I'm still every time I go, I'm assessing okay, where do I stand on this and that? But walking into Disney's Hollywood Studios to me still is a stronger, I am walking into old Hollywood, even with the new music loop that, is a little obscure. Maybe not everybody's going to catch that music, but it does have a different feel. You're not going to be hearing, Gone with the Wind anymore outside the former Great Movie Ride.
What are they playing now?
It's jazzy versions of Disney songs.
Oh, are there Hollywood ties to the songs?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's maybe walking in here and I want to be like you, but jazz. Yeah, I mean, it's like
downtown Disney in the morning.
Well,
I mean, literally. Actually, downtown Disney is interesting because, I honestly think somebody whoever's working puts on what they want to play because it's very inconsistent music. But they've been playing this jazz album a lot lately of, King of New York and stuff like that. A lot of just random Disney songs in a jazz version. So that's what they're...
I mean, admittedly, to me, it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like this is, you got the 10 best classic Disney songs with a jazz twist. It does feel authentic to me, at least, walking in. So even despite that music change, walking in down Hollywood Boulevard, seeing the Chinese theater at the end, even though a part of me dies every single time knowing a Great Movie Ride is not in there. Because
I thought you were going to say that because the hat was gone. I was like, oh my God, were you a hat supporter?
No. And I did grow up with the hat, I will say, but I very soon realized, seeing pictures of what it was before, I was so happy when they took the hat away, of course. But anyway, walking down Hollywood Boulevard, that still to me is I'm more immersed in old golden age Hollywood. At Universal, walking in, it's a little weird seeing Shrek 4D and Jimmy Fallon and the Minions, but I will say when you turn right and you kind of walk into that plaza area, they'll put the Christmas tree there at Christmas time, and then they have the facades. What I love about at Universal, the facades there, you can walk, it's like alleyways. That's amazing that they never really had on Streets of America at Disney-MGM Studios or Hollywood Studios. So what I love about that is that I feel like I am walking on an old gangster Hollywood film set. At Universal. So there are parts that I'm this is great, but to me overall, Disney's Hollywood Studios still is stronger for me, even despite the lack of attractions now.
No, I would agree. I think Disney's Hollywood Studio does a better job at the whole Hollywood thing. I will say, as a kid though, I didn't know that the Chinese theater was had anything, like, I figured it had something to do with Hollywood, but like the introduction of Grauman's Chinese theater to me was the Chinese theater at Disney's Hollywood Studios or Disney-MGM Studios.
Okay.
Like, I had no idea what that was until like years later I vacationed in Hollywood and was like, oh, that's like the thing from Disney-MGM Studios. And I'm like, oh, there's this interesting rich history to it. But I would agree that I think Disney-MGM Studios does, or Disney's Hollywood Studios does a better job than Universal. But the one thing Universal has that I don't think Disney Hollywood Studios has, and correct me if I'm wrong, they don't have the Hollywood Walk of Fame stars, do they? Are they anywhere at Disney's Hollywood Studios?
I'm trying to think on Sunset, because I'm walking down Hollywood now. I don't see any. I know, because we obviously have the hand and the footprints.
We got the hand and the footprints, which is great. Because they have Rick Moranis and they have Liza Minnelli, the important people.
Yeah. Oh, wait. No. Okay, do you know where they used to have those busts on the way to Star Tours?
The Television Academy.
Yeah. There weren't any over there, were there?
I could be wrong. I could be remembering incorrectly. But to me, I don't. Those Hollywood Walk of Fame stars are just so iconic Hollywood that I definitely remember them at Universal. And I have no memory of them at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Doesn't mean I'm 100% correct. I could be wrong about that. If anybody knows, please write in and let us know. But I don't have any memory. So even if they do have them, I don't think they've done a good job representing them, if that makes any sense. Yeah. But in any case,
I will say this just about Hollywood Studios. Like, I think what's so amazing to me, and it, I think showing, I mean, the direction that it's going, but like the Great Movie Ride. So there were movies in the Great Movie Ride that I knew about, that I saw because of the Great Movie Ride. Like, that's powerful to me, you know?
Okay.
Like, that's amazing. Am I going off topic here?
No, this is a huge point that I agree with. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Like, Alien,
I've never seen it.
Well, it's fine. I saw it because of that iconic scene in the Great Movie Ride. Being absolutely terrified as a kid. Years later, I bought the movie and watched it. And I think the Great Movie Ride when I watched that movie. Singing in the Rain is one of my absolute favorite movies. I saw that for the first time because I showed an interest in it because of the scene. Now, I'd already seen Mary Poppins. I'd seen Indiana Jones. But that's just, I mean, how incredible is that? That ride, that one attraction, and the montage at the end. Oh my gosh. Like,
yeah.
It made me want to, I mean, that, like, in the movie-loving person that I am, that, like, invigorated me all the more, you know, that attraction. So it's such a bummer that is gone now.
I had a similar situation with Alfred Hitchcock and at Universal Studios. They used to, where Shrek 4D is now, they had an Alfred Hitchcock attraction. And when I was a kid, I had no idea who Alfred Hitchcock was. And I went in.
What was the attraction?
What was that?
What was the attraction? It
was basically just like a behind the scenes of this is how movies are made. It wasn't like a ride, but it was you'd go from room to room and they'd show you how movies are made type of thing. And I knew nothing about Hitchcock. And I remember going home and like getting the VHS of Psycho and being like, wow. So this is off topic, but I think it's an interesting point that these days I feel like these companies are basically giving the people what they want. And by doing that, in my opinion, it's a disservice to the audience because I don't know. Like, I get it. It's when you take these companies, you know, they take surveys and they want to know what people want to see because that's what's going to get them to pay to come to the parks. And I just feel like I wish there was more of a happy medium with that because I think that the history of Hollywood or the history of anything is an important thing to remember. And I feel like these days the mode that these companies are in is nope, get rid of the stuff that people that's the past and make everything new. And I feel like we're losing something. I mean, the I Love Lucy tribute or the Lucille Ball tribute at Universal Studios has become a Hello Kitty store, which is more important in the grand scheme of things. Right. But in any case, anyway, back to the names of the parks. So we went from Disney-MGM Studios to Disney's Hollywood Studios in 2008, and then at an annual shareholder meeting in 2015, a child asks Bob Iger, flat out, is Disney's Hollywood Studios getting a new name? And Bob Iger just goes, yes, essentially. I'm paraphrasing here. But this was not supposed to be said.
Right.
And he knew it in that moment. He was like, oh, oops. And listen, I totally get it. The amount of meetings these people are in and the conversations they're having, it's very easy to forget like what is top secret and what isn't anymore. Right. And when you're the CEO of the company, guess what? You're not going to get in trouble for slipping up. So, so it was a fun little moment. But ever since then, us Disney fans have been like, well, what's the new name going to be?
Oh, my goodness.
And what does this mean for Disney's Hollywood Studios? So then let's jump forward a little further. In August of 2017, a survey comes out with some name options for Disney's Hollywood Studios. Whew. I'm going to read through these names real quickly. These are what was on the survey. Yeah. Disney Kaleidoscope Park, Disney Storyverse Park, Disney Hyperia Park, Disney Beyond Park, Disney Cinemagic Park, Disney Legends Park, Disney XL Park, and Disney Cinemagine Park.
I didn't know there was a difference between Cinemagine and Cinemagic.
Yeah, so there was a Disney Cinemagic and Disney Cinemagine. Now, interestingly enough, I've been talking a lot of Universal Studios today, but it keeps popping into my mind. I guess when you're comparing the two studios parks, it happens. Yeah. But when I hear Cinemagic, I think Universal Studios, because when I was a kid, they used to sell these souvenir VHS tapes, and it was, you know, the Universal Studios theme parks, and the title of them was a Universe of Cinemagic. So my brain immediately goes Universal Studios when I hear Cinemagic, which I think is interesting. But what did you think when you saw this survey for a new name for Disney's Hollywood Studios?
Not to sound over dramatic, but I honestly could not believe it. I was looking at these like this is a joke. Somebody tweeted like it was fake news. Like this is what it was.
Fake news. Disney fake news.
Disney fake news, yeah. No, I couldn't believe it. And then I started to think, okay, well, let's say this does happen. Let's rank these. What's the best that it could possibly be? What's the worst? And Jeff, I'm pretty sure on that list, Disney's Hollywood Studios was there. Am I wrong? Like on that initial list, was that one of the options? Or maybe that was like a separate section or a separate question in the same survey. But I remember Disney's Hollywood Studios name still being in there. And I thought, are they just trying to knock out all the bad ones just to say, oh, well, Hollywood Studios still kind of works? You know, I don't know.
I don't believe that was still in there. I could be wrong, though. But I got to be honest. I like the name Disney's Hollywood Studios, and I don't, with all of the changes that's going on with the park, I don't think the studio part I get. It's not a studio anymore, but neither is Universal Studios. So I don't, and not that I feel like Disney should, you know, just follow what Universal's doing or vice versa. I think they should do their own things. But I don't know, does the word studios bother you now that it's no longer a working studio?
No, it doesn't. And I get it, why they would want to get rid of it, like you were saying. I get why. Because we are past the day of take a peek behind the scenes. We're done. The days of the backlot tour are over, at least here in Florida. Do they still do that, Universal Hollywood?
Oh, Universal Studios Hollywood, yeah. It's a movie studio first and a theme park second out here. Right, whereas in Florida, it was the theme park first, studio second, and now I don't think it's a studio at all.
Well, at least over here, obviously, backlot tour, that's all done. So, we are now, and I think that Harry Potter at Universal really started this trend. Disney's always led the charge in the theme park industry, but I think Harry Potter here really, represented a big change. And that is, you're not just getting one standalone attraction based on an intellectual property with a themed dining location and maybe a gift shop. You are getting a 100% immersive surrounding world that you are stepping into. Harry Potter did that masterfully, I think, with both Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley. And I love both. And so I think we're getting that with Star Wars. I think we're getting that to a much lesser degree, Toy Story Land. But you are still stepping into that, and you're 100%, 360 degrees surrounded by that. So stepping into that world as opposed to, hey, I'm stepping onto this set, and there are the director's chairs. You remember Star Tours? I don't know if they did. Well, obviously they probably didn't do this at Disneyland's version, but Disney's Hollywood Studios, right when you walked into the building, I think there were director chairs for C-3PO. And
oh, really?
Right when you walked in. And then in 2011, when they updated the ride, it was all just futuristic, sleek, and as opposed to you're stepping onto the set into this, you know.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but I like that detail, actually.
Yeah.
I think that that's great.
But that's all done because now you're just stepping into the world. Yeah. So again, them trying to get away from it, that makes sense. But I think at this point, especially seeing that bad list, I'm totally fine with them keeping the name.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that the purpose of those studios or those theme parks when they opened was to let people know how movies are made. And now between special features on DVDs, which wasn't a thing back in 1989, and also on top of that, like making movies is just kind of less interesting because a green screen is less interesting than blowing something up. Like that's just a reality. So I feel like if they were going to keep the whole "this is how movies are made" type of thing, it would be a bit of more historic than it would actually be current. So if you had to change the name of Disney's Hollywood Studios, what would you change it to, aside from those terrible choices?
Yeah, probably XL. No, not Disney XL or Legends or Kaleidoscope. Gosh, and this was the one. I mean, this is like the common one thrown out, I think. I mean, on the forums for years, when there were ever, you know, those first rumors of changes to the park, it was Disney Hollywood Adventure.
Yeah,
and I think that's the safe one. And honestly, I'm okay in this situation. Typically with Disney, I don't like safe, but with this, I'm okay with them playing safe. Disney Hollywood Adventure gets the job done, so I'm okay with that.
I 100% agree. That's what I would go with. Now, an interesting thing did come up because recently, and I've talked about this a little bit on the show, but recently, Disney Cinemagine Park is the one that moved to the front of the line. That's basically the one that in the rumor mill we've heard is happening. Disney Cinemagine Park. So a mix of the word cinema and imagine. You know, the joke's been made a billion times, but it makes you think of Cinnabon. Like it just, there's something about it that sounds food related. Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't seem to work, but something even more interesting happened where we got official word from the Walt Disney Company, and this doesn't happen much. They don't respond to rumors all that much. But they did say, in response to questions we've been receiving, we also want to let fans know that the Disney's Hollywood Studios name will remain the same for the foreseeable future, since we are immersing our guests in a place where imagined worlds of Hollywood unfold around them, from movies and music to television and theater. I mean, okay, but what does that mean? First of all, foreseeable future? What does that mean?
Exactly.
And
it's the kind of statement that it's very safe and they can do whatever they want with it. Foreseeable future could be by the time Toy Story Land opens, or it could be till the 50th anniversary, or for now. I mean, for good. Like
here's what I think really needs to happen. If they're going to change the name, they need to do it by the time the marketing for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge begins, because they're going to invest a ton of money marketing that new land. And if they start stamping it with Disney's Hollywood Studios and then change the name 6 months later, that's going to be a very costly thing to do. So they need to make the decision. Is it going to remain the same name, or is it going to become something different? And so I feel like, they're saying 2019. I feel like Florida's going to get it toward the end of 2019. I feel like by January 2019, that decision needs to be made, and it will be announced soon after that, if and when it's going to happen.
Gosh, even that though, like the thought of within a year, they're going to completely change the name again. And right before, I don't know, that seems crazy to me. But
well, an interesting, oh goodness, I can't remember where I was hearing this, but obviously, you know, when it comes to a name change, it's a very costly thing. It's not just this, change a few signs. Right. No, there's marketing materials. There's lots of signs that need to be changed. But supposedly, the amount of money they made with the closing of the Great Movie Ride on merchandise was way more than they ever expected. So apparently they're getting ready for, goodness, I feel like I heard this on some podcast. I wish I could give credit where credit is due, but I'm totally blanking on where. Apparently they're getting ready to, quote, say goodbye to Hollywood. And that's, you know, a very famous Billy Joel song, Say Goodbye to Hollywood, you know that song? That's the slogan that they want to use, say goodbye to Hollywood. And they would plaster this on t-shirts and mugs and whatever. And the amount of money they made for the Great Movie Ride, I can tell you they would make even more with Say Goodbye to Hollywood. And that, hopefully the money that came from that would pay for the sign changes, for the marketing changes, and all that stuff. Wow. So it's very interesting that changing the name and hitting that nostalgia button for people is now profitable.
That's crazy.
I find it very, very interesting.
That is interesting. I remember for years seeing Disney-MGM Studios wheelchairs
Yeah.
Still in the park.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still there, but
Dude,
a long time after.
Those are so eBayable at this point. Like, are you kidding me? Like, put anything with Disney-MGM Studios printed on it. Yeah. In fact, I had oh goodness, I feel like I had a t-shirt I ended up getting rid of because it was destroyed, but it was like a Muppet Vision 3D t-shirt that said Disney-MGM Studios. And I have a Hollywood Tower Hotel, a Tower of Terror poster in my kitchen that says Disney-MGM Studios, and it's destroyed. But I kept it because as a kid it was like taped and tacked on my bedroom wall. Now I framed it and I'm like, no, this is like treasure at this point. But it's really funny. Anyways, we've been talking a lot about Disney's Hollywood Studios and their name changes and the upcoming one. But it's not the only park that's ever gone through a name change. And it's kind of interesting because I feel like the way it's being treated on social media and everything, people are like, this is unheard of. Well, no, it's very much heard of. And I think one of the other biggest examples is EPCOT Center. Which opened in 1982 as the acronym for the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. And that was the name of the park from October 1982 through 1993.
Yep.
And then it became, what, Jonathan?
EPCOT 94.
Yeah. Now, for all the reasons I just explained with the marketing and signage and all that stuff, I will never understand what they were thinking with EPCOT 94. I find this such a weird choice.
Yes, and it's not even like EPCOT 2000, you know, like that. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Big celebration there, big number there. It totally makes sense. 94? I mean, and I know a lot of changes came to EPCOT in 94, but still.
It's the 12th anniversary year. Yes.
And we're going to keep that name for how long?
1 year, because then it becomes EPCOT 95. So let's change the marketing materials and the signage again. Once again, I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah.
Luckily, this trend ended after 95. And it simply became EPCOT. It was no longer an acronym. They were not all capital letters. It's now capital E with a lowercase PCOT. And that's what it's been since 1996 and moving forward. So that's a long time. But did you see the Blog Mickey article that came out?
Blog Mickey article?
Yeah, Blog Mickey reported that Disney has some paperwork filed. And on the paperwork, this is for all of the new changes coming to EPCOT, and I believe it had to do something to do with a new parking lot and the rumor of a new hotel.
Oh, the entrance hotel. Yes. Yeah.
On this paperwork that was submitted, the name of the park was EPCOT World Center. So is EPCOT going to be getting another name change? Who knows? I mean, these things change constantly. Nothing has been announced. Once again, this is rumor. But on official paperwork submitted by Disney, EPCOT World Center is what it's being referred to as.
Look. Okay, EPCOT, the EPCOT that we see, I mean, I don't know about today, but 1982 EPCOT, I mean, viewed as a permanent permanent...
World's Fair.
World's Fair, that's what I was trying to, permanent expo there. So the idea of actually having a name, you know, because we had these expos, like the 64, 65 New York World's Fair. You know, like having a number on there actually... In their defense, in Disney's defense about 94, 95, I think you can make the argument there.
Odd for it to be
odd for it to be there for 2 years, and of all years, 94 and 95. But World Center does sound a little bit more like a central hub, like where a bunch of innovation and industry activity, a bunch of those kind of things happen. So again, in Disney's defense, I'll give it that maybe, but I hope it doesn't change to that.
Okay, but even if that's the argument, isn't the park moving further and further away from that?
That's what's confusing. And the whole thing about the new direction is it's going to be more EPCOT, more timeless, but then more Disney, more family friendly. And it's like, well, I don't know if EPCOT was ever intended to be, not that it was supposed to be some like rated R park, but like family friendly and
rated R park.
But family friendly and Disney don't sound very old EPCOT, you know, so that it's very confusing where they're going.
Well, what I think is interesting is, okay, so everybody knows EPCOT's broken up into two sections. There's World Showcase and then Future World. So this whole world is kind of what ties them together because let's face it, they're two very separate ideas. Yeah. So the world, Future World, World Showcase is I guess they're the point that ties the two of them together? So maybe that's what they're trying to do?
It's just, for me, why? Like, why not just keep it Epcot? Everyone knows Epcot. Everyone knows what, the Epcot symbol. Like, why change it to World Center? I mean, that just, it's needlessly wordy, and I don't know, it's weird.
Well, because then we can call it EWC.
Hey, there you go.
That's what's going to happen. Oh, I'm heading to EWC today. What? But I do find it interesting that there's rumors of a hotel going there, because we did recently hear that the Star Wars hotel will be connected to Disney's Hollywood Studios. What was that?
Seamlessly connected.
Yeah. So maybe this is a direction. I mean, Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge, do they have an entrance directly into the park? No.
No, a lot of people think that, but no. And some people think the savannah, the animals you can see at the resort, are the same that you can see on Kilimanjaro safaris, but it's not. It's totally separate. I mean, it's very close, but still totally separate.
It's interesting, though, how it seems like all of the theme parks will soon have hotels very, very close to them.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting direction they're heading in as well. But in any case, so Epcot went through several name changes. EPCOT Center, EPCOT 94, EPCOT 95, EPCOT as we know it today, and maybe EPCOT World Center in the future. We shall see. But now, the park name change that kind of snuck in out of nowhere, the Magic Kingdom. Do you remember when this happened?
It was totally unannounced.
Unannounced, overnight, I think. So in October 1971, the Magic Kingdom opened as the Magic Kingdom. And then in April, I think, of 2017, the sign over the train station, which is your welcome, your entrance into the Magic Kingdom, no longer says it just says Magic Kingdom. I find this interesting. I find this weird. I find this like, why? That's really my big thing, is why. But there is something about it that, I don't know, it's the Magic Kingdom. Yeah. I don't know, it bothers me. Yeah,
and on marketing and things like that, it's always been, or I don't know about always, but at least recently, it's been Magic Kingdom. Oddly enough, they refer to it as Magic Kingdom Park. That's always been weird to me, and I think the official name is still Magic Kingdom, just like it's Disney's Animal Kingdom, but they'll refer to it as Disney's Animal Kingdom Theme Park, Magic Kingdom Park. That's just so weird to me.
You know what that is? And this actually happened with Disneyland as well, because there seems to be some confusion between how many people go to Walt Disney World and say, they'll go to the front desk and they'll say, okay, I want to go to Disney World today.
Right.
And what they really mean is, I want to go to the Magic Kingdom.
Right.
But they think Disney World, as they call it, is the Magic Kingdom. They think Cinderella Castle is Disney World. And so I think that when they add park to these things, I think that's the reasoning why. It happened with Disneyland. For the longest time, it was just Disneyland. And then, what was the year? At some point, it became Disneyland Park, because in the 90s.
DCA? Oh, okay. Before.
No, it was in the 90s that they started calling it Disneyland Park, because it started expanding with Downtown Disney and multiple hotels and stuff. So they had to start differentiating it between Disneyland Park and Disneyland the Resort. Why they have to do that with Magic Kingdom, I'm not so sure, other than the fact, like I just said, most people will say, I want to go to Disney World, and they mean they want to go to the Magic Kingdom. So maybe putting the word park after it makes it clearer for people. That would be my guess. But in any case, this official change has happened. The Magic Kingdom is now officially Magic Kingdom. What I find very interesting is, have you ever ridden the railroad or the train at Disneyland?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. When you're on the Main Street station, you hear an announcement as the train approaches, and it goes, "Your attention, please. The Disneyland Limited now arriving from a trip around Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom." So, Disneyland is officially referred to as a Magic Kingdom.
Yep.
Which is why I liked the distinction of Walt Disney World having the Magic Kingdom. So I believe Walt even referred to Disneyland as a Magic Kingdom. And the company still recognizes that in the speech for the train. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing to me. I find it nerdily interesting.
Yes. And I mean, from a business standpoint, I mean, it's probably just to take away, the inconsistency of it. Magic Kingdom Park, or is it Magic Kingdom, or is it the Magic Kingdom? And I think now if people refer to it as the Magic Kingdom, it's a lowercase v. It's just in a sentence. I'm going to the Magic Kingdom. And the official capital M, capital K, Magic Kingdom. So it's weird. I think the population, how it had population, and then that's gone too. Yeah, I was just when I was got there on the monorail the other day, and just Magic Kingdom. I can't. Maybe it says it might say established 1971 or 18. I don't know what it says, because on Main Street sometimes or in Frontierland they'll change. It's 18 something for an important year, but it says Magic Kingdom and then one or two other things, but it's much simpler than it had. The population thing's gone now.
Interesting. I mean, I've made the terrible joke before, but pretty soon it's just going to say hashtag Magic Kingdom, all one word.
We'll see.
I wouldn't be the name of the park. Anyway, so Magic Kingdom was affected. Disneyland to Disneyland Park was affected. And then, of course, in 2001, we had Disney's California Adventure. Mm-hmm. And later on, it just became Disney California Adventure, dropping the apostrophe S. I believe this might have been as part of the rededication in June of 2012. I'm not.
No, I think it was before.
Was it before
they changed the name? It was after the announcements of everything that were coming: Cars Land, World of Color, Buena Vista Street, all that stuff. But I want to say by the time I went for the first time when I met you in 2011, that it was Disney California Adventure at that point.
Okay. And that's still, I feel like still to this day, there's still signs and stuff that say Disney's California Adventure. Obviously not a huge change. I feel like most people don't even recognize it. From what I understand, the whole taking away the apostrophe S, which we keep seeing more and more, whatever they do with Disney's Hollywood Studios, I'm pretty sure will be just Disney, whatever they decide to make the name, get rid of the apostrophe S. If Animal Kingdom, I think will probably eventually do it as well. The story I've always been told is with the apostrophe S, it makes it seem like an ownership by a person. This Disney person owns the California Adventure. And instead, they want you to think more of this is a company, a brand. Have you heard any differently?
No. I mean, the way I see it is Disney's California Adventure. I mean, the park opened with a lot less Disney that's there now, right?
Yeah.
So it's now Goofy Sky School. Was it Mulholland Madness? Is that what it was called?
Yep, Mulholland Madness.
So I saw it as this is a California adventure. We're celebrating literal California things, but it's Disney owned. So this is Disney's California Adventure. Mm-hmm. Disney California Adventure, it's hard to kind of distinguish this, but I see it as Disney California Adventure is like a Disney spin on California. So we have Goofy Sky School. We've got Paradise Pier. Instead of a big sun, we've got Mickey. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry, now it's going to be Pixar Pier. With Mickey still going to be there.
With Mickey still there. God, I hope that concept art was wrong. I really hope that Mickey's getting replaced, but that's a whole other story.
But it looks so good. I love
it. It does
that.
look so good, but I'm sorry, it makes no sense.
It doesn't
Pixar
make
Pier.
Pixar Pier doesn't make much sense, but I'll just say that. But anyway, excited for the Incredicoaster, but I was a big fan of, California Screaming. But anyway, that's how I see it. Disney California Adventure is just like a Disney version of California. So
yeah. And now the biggest name change perhaps goes to Paris with the Euro Disney Resort.
Yeah.
Which opened in 92? Am I making that up?
Yeah, 92.
I think it was 92. The Euro Disney Resort, which really didn't do well, and the French folks didn't care for Disney coming to their land, and it showed when it came to the amount of dollars being spent there. So in an effort to improve the public image, they changed the name to Disneyland Paris in 1995. And that's what it was from 95 to 2002. It was known as Disneyland Paris. Mm-hmm. And then in 2002, when the Walt Disney Studios Park opened, it changed to Disneyland Resort Paris, which makes sense to me. It's not just one park anymore. It's a full-on resort. But then for some reason, in 2009, it switched back to just Disneyland Paris. So they've changed the name there as well several times.
Yeah.
I think Disneyland Paris just sounds better than Euro Disney Resort. Yeah. And so I'm all for that change. Mm-hmm. But once again, name change, it's really interesting. I feel like people forget about all of these name changes through the years. And that
it's a big deal. It's a big deal. These changes, like you were saying, it's a big investment for so many times. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, so that pretty much does it for the parks, the ones that we've mentioned, but there's also been some resorts that have had some name changes. So why don't you talk about one of those?
Absolutely. So Disney got into the timeshare business back in 1991 when Disney's Vacation Club Resort opened in Walt Disney World. 4 years later, Disney's Vero Beach Resort opened southeast of Walt Disney World, down at Vero Beach. It opened as the second Vacation Club Resort. And then the third DVC property, Disney Vacation Club, Disney's Hilton Head Resort, opened in South Carolina in 1996. So in 1996, the name Disney's Vacation Club Resort at Walt Disney World, that changed to Disney's Old Key West Resort because it was no longer the only DVC resort. I think this name change makes complete sense. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, when you start having more than one Disney Vacation Club Resort, you need to, unless they wanted to call it like the OG Disney's Vacation Club Resort or something like that. But yeah, the change to Disney's Old Key West Resort, I think, made sense.
Yeah.
The one that I find interesting is Disney's Polynesian Village Resort, which opened in 1971. And then in 1985, they changed the name just simply to Disney's Polynesian Resort. I don't know why they got rid of the village back then. Do you?
I don't either. I don't.
Okay. But from 1985 to 2014, that's what it was called. And then perhaps for, I think partially for a push of nostalgia, but also because they did end up building some DVC little village huts, it looked like.
Right,
they
changed
the name. Yeah, the bungalows. They changed it back to Disney's Polynesian Resort, which I think makes a lot of sense. So that's the official. So this is now the second one. We've talked about Disneyland Paris becoming Disneyland Resort Paris and then back to Disneyland Paris. And now we've got Polynesian Village Resort, which became Polynesian Resort, which went back to Disney's Polynesian or Village Resort. So it's interesting to me that happened. But
yeah, it was interesting because it was back in 2014, it was the Disney Parks blog that announced, hey, some renovations are coming to the resort. We're going to revamp the lobby or reimagine the lobby, which turned out to be pretty controversial with the removal of that big waterfall, which I loved. New villas and bungalows were going to be built as well. One of the biggest changes was that name, of course. But in addition to that, we were adding some more story to the resort with Trader Sam's Grog Grotto, which is inspired by Disneyland's Trader Sam's, which I haven't been to Disneyland's, but ours here at Polynesian Village, it's so great. It's so great. So the idea of a village, I think, like you said, with the bungalows, I think that makes sense. I want to think a big part of it is Walt Disney World president George Kalogridis. So he made the announcement that it was changing the name back. So I'd like to think that he played a big part because he actually started with Disney as a busboy at Contemporary in 1971. So I want to think that he has a love and a deep respect for heritage and nostalgia. So I'm all for this change. I love being able to call it Disney's Polynesian Village Resort.
Nice. And then there was the Disney's Port Orleans Resort, and also separate from that was Disney's Dixie Landings Resort. And those opened in 91 and 92 respectively, and then in 2001 they merged, and they're both now referred to as Disney's Port Orleans Resort. So another name change. Dixie Landings no longer exists. I cannot keep track of the resorts. I just remember I stayed at Dixie Landings as a kid, and honestly, as I was doing research for this, I was like, oh, Dixie Landings doesn't even exist anymore. Who knew?
There's a lot of resorts.
Yeah. And then there's the Disneyland Pacific Hotel, which was purchased in 1995, which became Disney's Paradise Pier Hotel in 2001 because of the new park opening. So basically this was an existing hotel, and what happens at the Disneyland Resort is, since they don't have the land that Walt Disney World does, whenever land becomes available, they buy it. So they needed another hotel. They bought this hotel that existed. They did a quick Disney overlay. You can tell it's not a Disney hotel, but it's fine. Like it's a fine place to stay. And so they just called it Disneyland Pacific Hotel because I think the original name might have just been the Pacific Hotel. But then, of course, when you build a park right next to it and you can see this hotel from the park, the area called Paradise Pier, you change the name to Disney's Paradise Pier Hotel. The question is, will this change for Pixar? Will this become the Pixar Pier Hotel? We don't know. At this point, it's still going to be in the area that will be known as Paradise Park at Disney California Adventure. But the future will see if Pixar Pier expands in that direction. So it'll be interesting.
It will be interesting. And actually, I do see, so the hotel originally opened Emerald Hotel of Anaheim.
Ah, thank you.
The company, it was the Tokiyu Group, which was a team of companies, which was like comprised primarily of companies focused on the Tokyo Corporation Railway Company, which obviously I know nothing about. It changed the name later to Pan Pacific, and then it goes from there to Pan Pacific to when Disneyland bought it.
This may be the only case where Disney bought a pre-existing hotel and made it theirs. Like, I know that there's the Swan and Dolphin, I believe, are still run by a separate company, isn't it? Like, Disney doesn't.
Marriott runs Swan and Dolphin.
So that's a bit different as well. But I don't know. This is Disney buying it outright from them and making it their own. I don't know if that's happened before. But in any case, that's all the name changes we came across in our research. There's quite a few, I think way more than people even realize. So this is not a new thing, what's going on right now with Disney's Hollywood Studios. But I do want to ask you before we wrap things up, what does a park name change mean to you? When this happens, what does it mean to you?
I mean, it's not just, I think there are some examples of like EPCOT 94, 95, where it's just like to make it quote unquote more relevant, update on the times kind of thing. Other than that, though, I think it really is, it's a clear change, at least, and I'm really thinking from the perspective of Disney's Hollywood Studios right now. It's a clear change in the direction of the park and its theme and its storytelling drive. What is this park really going to be about? I think sometimes it's a smart change from Euro Disney to Disneyland Paris. But I think the substantial ones, which we've seen with the same park here in Florida, it really is just saying this is what we're going to be about now. Not just a peek behind the curtain, behind the scenes, stepping onto a set. It's about Hollywood. It's about, show business overall, music, theater, TV, movies. And then now, if they do change it, I think it is about we're stepping into these 100% immersive worlds. So I do think it is just like it is a clear step saying we are changing the direction. We're steering the ship in the other direction of what this park is going to be all about now.
Yeah, for me, a name change means either, oops, we made a mistake in the case of Euro Disney, but in a lot of cases, just like, say goodbye to what you knew. It's kind of, it's a little bit of a punch in the gut because it's like, oh, well, that's no longer going to exist. I still get a little like weepy when I see things that say Disney-MGM Studios. I'm just like, oh, that's so nice. But now the question I hate to even ask, but I need to ask. Do you think the name will ever officially be changed from Walt Disney World to Disney World? Do you think that's even a possibility?
I think it is a possibility. I don't want to think, and I really don't think it will. It's already referred to as Disney World so much, I don't think they need to worry.
But that's my point. So
hasn't it always really been referred to Disney World, like since 71?
I don't know. I wasn't a kid in 71.
But I just think, like, you read things in the Disney World project. Well, gosh, never mind. I'm silly because...
But it was the Disney...
Yeah. It was, you're right. So I don't think so.
I certainly hope not, but I'll tell you what, if that happens, that's the day that Disney Coast to Coast ends, because I think that it'll just become a podcast of fury at that point. I think there's like a chance it could happen. I certainly hope it never does. But if it does happen, I think it would be for the reason that you just mentioned, because that's what everybody refers to. To me, it's very much like, well, people call it Magic Kingdom anyway. Let's just call it Magic Kingdom. Like, to me, obviously on a much bigger scale, but I don't think it's an impossibility is what I'm getting at. I
recently caught this. Now, I've read it before, the dedication of when Roy Disney dedicated Magic Kingdom, dedicated Walt Disney World. It is, and I was like, that is such a big deal that nobody thinks about. Walt Disney World, it's in the dedication, is a tribute to Walt Disney. Like, it is a...
Well, yeah.
I mean, and you don't think about that, but that, like,
I
that
do.
Right. I know you do. General you. And look, I didn't before reading, learning a bit more about the history of the company and Walt Disney World. But, like, that's a huge deal. Like, this place is specifically a tribute to Walt Disney. Like, that's huge.
Yeah. That's
not
why
just a Disney company. It's
honestly, that's why it comes down. That's why I insist that it be called Walt Disney World. I know people think I'm crazy about that, but I think it's a big deal. I really do. But in any case, guys, I want to ask you. I want you to join the conversation. Go to YouTube, leave a comment. Let us know if you could change the name of Disney's Hollywood Studios to anything. Don't just stick to that terrible survey that they had. If you could change the name of Disney's Hollywood Studios to anything, what would you name Disney's Hollywood Studios? That is the conversation for this week. Head to YouTube, leave a comment. But for now, that means
it's trivia time!
Okay, Jonathan, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
Jeff, I'll hit you.
Okay.
So we've been talking about park name changes, and we just recently had the announcement of Toy Story Land's opening date of June 30th of this year.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of a stretch here, but I'm going back to 1995, to the Pixar classic that started it all. I'm going back to Toy Story.
Okay.
I've wanted to ask you this question for a while. But by the way, side note here, they're the moving truck company that moves Andy and his family out. You know, they move by the end of the movie, spoiler. It's called Eggman Movers, and their tagline is moving the most coast to coast. That's pretty great. Yeah.
Nice.
How about that tie-in there? That's
I love
not the question, of course. The question is this. I don't know if you're going to get this. What is the name of the real estate company that sells Andy's house?
I'm not even.
It is. There's just a shot where it's right in the front of the frame, and I've always, for some reason, this has always stuck with me because it's just such an interesting.
This is in the first movie.
First movie.
The name of the real estate company that Lassiter Incorporated. I have no idea.
No. You want to try again?
Is it like? Give me a hint.
It's like a play on words. It has to do with real estate, not like a Pixar tie-in.
A moving company, real estate.
Like a real estate company's name.
I literally have no idea. What is it?
Virtual Realty.
Virtual Realty.
Yep.
Why do you remember that?
I don't know, Jeff. How weird is that? But I was like, you know what? I've just got to ask him that. I've got to see if anyone else.
Virtual Realty. It's a cute name. I'll try and... You know what that was? That was somebody working on the film who's like, oh, I was going to start a real estate company and call it Virtual Realty. I never did that, so here's where it's going. It's funny. My question for you is... Back in the day, there was a resort at Walt Disney World called the Disney Institute, and this was a resort and a learning center that opened in 1996. This was the big project that Michael Eisner helmed, and it just never took off the way it was supposed to. It was for, corporations and businesses to go learn the Disney way of running things. And this was called the Disney Institute, but since this didn't work, the campus that they built for Disney Institute became something else. Do you know the name of the old Disney Institute campus?
Is it Disney University?
Nope. Disney University is like an online thing now.
It's actually, that's behind Magic Kingdom, like where you go for like what they call traditions.
Okay, yeah, no. So this was for outside of the Walt Disney Company. This was for like, Comcast, or weird example, but Comcast could go and take training sessions at the Disney Institute. So companies would pay to train and learn the Disney way. And Disney Institute still does exist. It's an online thing now instead of an actual campus.
And so where is it now?
So what is the name of what used to be the Disney Institute campus is now a Disney resort. Which resort is it?
What?
I'll give you a hint. It opened in 2003.
2003. It's not one of the All-Stars, is it?
Nope. Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort and Spa is the former Disney Institute resort.
Wow.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
True story. Anything you want to plug today before we get going?
Well,
where can folks find you?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter. That's at Jonathan Harvill. JONATHANHARVILL.
Jonathan, thanks so much for coming on today's episode of Disney Coast to Coast. Before I do get going here, folks, I do want to remind you that this upcoming Friday, yes, March 2nd, just a couple days away, is the first of the Patreon live streams. I'm doing a Q&A over there, so if you want to be part of the live stream, head to patreon.com/DCTC or just go to DisneyCoastToCoast.com and click on the Patreon link there. I would love to have you join us for the Q&A. Also, all of our social media can be found at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. But for now, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for watching Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePaoli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.